start the recording. Damn. Wait for it all to... Okay, cool. Team Early as Fuck podcast, and I don't remember the episode number. I'll do that later when I record the intro, but we've got Jenna Halvorson here. Jenna, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Excited to be here.
All right, cool. Big thing, Jenna. Oh, what do we got here? Got a little feedback. Okay. So, Jenna, you are the creator, main head coach. Do you have a coaching team? Oh, we'll get to that later. But you are the creator of the Mental Clutch training program. And I've experienced this at the Wisconsin Strength and Conditioning Clinic recently. When was that? I'm blanking.
Just like a month ago.
Yeah, it was like a month ago, but I was super impressed with the way you kind of laid out your story in the program, kind of where it came from, but also I'm a huge fan of any kind of exercise that gets the group moving, because I've been to way too many, well, just from school in general, lectures where you just sit there and they expect you to be a sponge and you can't do anything, and then it just bores me to tears or my mind wanders because I can't sit and be engaged for that long. And you were just getting everyone moving around, these fun exercises that were then tied back to kind of, what we do as coaches, as leaders, and really people who change lives. Like that's, you definitely believe that. I believe that as coaches, we're not just there to either teach a squat or teach a sport. We're actually there to, help people become better versions of themselves. So yeah, I saw all that in the mental clutch, and that's why I asked you to be on the podcast.
All right. Well, I'm glad you asked.
Sweet. So, Jenna, let's dive into your backstory. What are kind of like the 8 Mile moments? Because I'm a big fan of those. Not really the movie or Eminem in general, but I'm a big fan of 8 Mile moments.
Yes.
So,
Kind of like the backstory, how they came to be.
yeah, exactly. Just like the moments now that you're, in the future version of you, you can look back at and be like, oh yeah, that was that moment. So let's
Yeah.
start there.
All right. Well, I am originally from Faribault, Minnesota. That's kind of where I grew up. My whole family's still there. It's kind of south of the Twin Cities. And growing up, sports were always a really big part of my life. I always grew up like with my dad playing basketball, football, volleyball. We'd make like tournaments with my brother and sister,
Mm-hmm.
2 on 2, and we'd just like cycle through. And my main sports then, when I was in high school, were pretty much soccer, dance line, and track.
Okay.
And sports was always a big identity of who I was. And I guess some like defining moments for me with sport was I was a middle child growing up with 5 siblings,
Oh.
so I was really the quiet, shy one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and sports was my way to kind of stand out and kind of shine. And I think now looking back with my psychology background, is probably my way of like getting my parents' attention. Um, yeah, so
Like, look what I could
yeah,
do.
yeah. So I think it was fifth grade. I remember we did like a sprint, like a time sprint, and I like beat this girl who was like really fast in our school, and they were all like, "Oh my gosh, like Jenna beat her!" And I beat a lot of the guys, and that was my first kind of insight that I might be pretty fast. And then seventh grade, I went out for the middle school track team because my friend Sophie at the time convinced me. She said, "We don't really have to do anything. It's super easy. We just hang out with like our friends and talk to the boys." Okay, yeah, let's try it. And then we had to do like timed everything. Like they had us do a 100, a 200, a 400, just everything to see like where kind of we were good at to kind
Mm.
of focus on for the season. And I remember doing the time 400, and I was like, how far is that? And they're like, you just run one lap around the track. And I was like, okay, little seventh grade, never been out for track. So I ran it, and they timed it, and I didn't know what was good for a 400. And apparently it was like 65 seconds, and that's pretty good for middle school.
Damn.
And I
Yeah,
beat my
that's
older
awesome.
brother. Yeah. And he actually reran it because he was like, this isn't going to fly. I can't have my sister beat me. So he actually reran it. And then in Minnesota, if you can compete at the varsity level, they will move you up in middle school
Oh.
to compete varsity. So about a week later, my mom got a phone call from the varsity track coach wanting to move me up. and she was kind of nervous about it, but ultimately I was in varsity 7th grade. So 8th grade was varsity soccer. So I pretty early on I was very, very busy with sports.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like varsity 3 sport athlete in middle school. So I kind of carried on throughout my whole 4 years in high school. And I think I learned so much though from my sporting experience that helped me to where I am today. Um, just there's so many defining moments that I had in my sports that taught me, hard work, teamwork, leadership, time management skills was huge because I'm a super busy person and people
Mm-hmm.
are always like, how can you get it all done?
Yeah,
And I really think it goes back to always being in sports, having school, sports, having a part-time job, balancing all of that. I think really helps me just get to do so much today.
definitely. Do you think that it was you specifically, your maybe your family, your background, your environment that allowed you to carry that forward? Because I think we've probably both seen a lot of people who were in the sports, were constantly busy, but then they are removed from that leadership and they realize they didn't actually create any leadership over themselves. Like the discipline from always being told what to do is no longer there, so they kind of get lost in the shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it's specific to you? You had great coaches. Was it your family life? Like what allowed you to keep that going to now?
So I think it's probably a combination. I mean, definitely, nature versus nurture
Yeah,
kind
right.
of too. So I definitely think my parents were huge into that. And also, I know a lot of people who go out for sports and they're not able to continue
Mm-hmm.
because, they have to work, they have to make money, and they don't have supportive parents.
Yeah.
And mine were very supportive, and they always told me to, like, do not ever quit your athletics because you feel like you need to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
If you are ever like that financially struggling with money, like we will help you because they knew having extracurricular activities was so important. So that was something that was huge. But I think too, just with my parents and having so many siblings, I think just kind of made me very independent
Mm-hmm.
as well, even though I was really quiet and shy. But I'm just very intrinsically motivated naturally. Like I think maybe deep down I was doing the sports to get my parents' attention and stuff. That was the way I, shined.
Yeah.
But also I think I just was so motivated myself to see how far I could take things and to see how good I can be.
Yeah. All right. Cool. That makes sense. And then going into college, what did that look like?
So I my senior years where I really kind of did really well in track. And I knew I wanted to compete in a sport collegiately, but soccer was my favorite sport. Um, but I think the only reason I was really good at soccer is because I was fast.
Hmm.
My ball control was not very good. So I think collegiately, I knew I was a little worried about trying out for a soccer team. So I decided I was going to do track, debated on different schools, and I decided on Wisconsin lacrosse, UWL. And I absolutely loved my experience. I am very biased when it comes to lacrosse. I had amazing coaches, amazing teammates, best like 4 years ever. And that really like, developed a different relationship with track and field because track was actually my least favorite sport in high school. But in college, you're surrounded by so many people who care,
Mm-hmm.
so many people who are interested in getting better themselves, helping you get better. And it just, just raised the bar.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had an amazing college experience there.
So talking about collegiate athletics, the student athlete kind of balance, what did that look like for you? What were you with a were you always a psychology major, or did that kind of come along throughout the 4 years?
Yeah, I know a lot of people are pretty jealous about how I found my major because I know so many people who go into college thinking they want one major and they change it and they change it. It's hard to graduate in 4 years. It's very, very common. But I was one of the weird ones who I knew in like my junior year, I really liked psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So senior year, I took a AP psych course, and I decided like right before I started the class that if I passed the class and I passed the AP test and I still like psychology, that is what I'm going to major in.
Yeah.
and passed the AP test, loved the class, and I knew going in that I wanted to pursue a degree in psychology.
Nice. What what drew you to motivational psychology specifically, or sports psychology?
Well, I always thought I would go to like the clinical counseling route because
Okay.
that's just kind of the most common. And I really liked my interpersonal helping skills class, which was very much more, motivational interviewing,
Yep.
and that one kind of stood out to me. And I actually had no idea what sports psych was. It was actually my junior year. I remember over the summer, I was working my summer job and I was watching the Summer Olympics and they were interviewing the winners. And I specifically remember, I don't remember who the athlete was, but they were asking him, like, how did you prepare for this race? So, like, what did you do to get ready for this performance? And they talked about working with their sports psychologist a lot and getting mentally ready. And I remember just like standing there. I worked at like a laundromat slash tanning salon, and I just remember watching the screen. I was like, "What is sports psychology? Like, this is a thing." Because I always was kind of torn too of like, I want to go clinical counseling, but how can I add sports?
Yep.
So I was scared I'd coach or something on the side, but I was like, I can blend my two passions. Like, let's do it. So I researched programs and talked to a lot of people, and yeah, it was a lot of, I had to do it on my own. A lot of my professors didn't really know about sports psych at the time.
That was my next question because I know my minor is psychology, so obviously I didn't have to get as in depth into your program, but uh, the the thought of like creating that program at Point would have been kind of crazy because it was all like people that had done research with birds or young development and all these, or maybe the senses or weird, I shouldn't say weird, but maybe neurodegenerative type things in psychology where they're looking at certain case studies or getting very specific in different domains of psychology, but never once, I don't think, was motivational or sports psychology mentioned. So I was curious how you got about getting into that, but it sounds like you kind of created your own program.
Well, I had to do the research a lot myself.
Okay,
Because I went and got a master's in sports psychology.
gotcha.
But yeah, so going into my senior year, which is when you probably should already be applying to programs, I just was learning about what sports psych was.
Yeah,
So I did take a year off after I graduated and coached with the track team and then applied to programs.
gotcha. How many how many people in I don't know if there's an answer to this, but how many people in sports, the world of sports psychology, that have a business like yours, how many of them are not in sports? Are they all typically ex-athletes?
A lot of them are ex-athletes,
Mm-hmm.
but there are a lot who aren't. But I would say generally with sports psychology, if you ask them, like why sports psychology, it's a lot of it's because they were an athlete themselves and they have that passion for athletics or
Mm-hmm.
they have some performance background. That's not always the case, but I would say majority definitely is.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. It seems like kind of one of those things where it would help. I mean, not saying you have to be, because I'm sure, um, the human mind, the brain, the psyche. Once you kind of figure out motivation, what drives someone, it's not necessarily saying you have to be in sports to kind of get that or help someone. But I think sports psychology specifically, it's still super new. So I think a lot of it is people like yourself who had great experiences with sports just naturally gravitate to kind of more the cerebral cognitive part of it, and then you kind of blend all of these things together and create your own destiny, I guess, or your own career, because you don't want to be stuck in a clinic. I don't see someone like yourself uh, working primarily in just a clinic. Not to say there's anything wrong with that, but you're
Yeah, I like working with groups and teams too. I mean, I do the individual one-on-one mental training, but I really like, I don't know, talking to groups and coaching development and that kind of stuff as well.
yeah, I noticed that. I definitely noticed that at the clinic. You did an awesome job, just getting everyone to kind of communicate and blend, and because there was a very broad spectrum of individuals in that room, people with like 40 years of experience in strength and conditioning, and then people with zero, students students at lacrosse. So it was pretty cool the way you were able to get everyone talking.
Yeah. Well, then too, there were people from different backgrounds. I actually wasn't expecting that. There was a wide range of professions as well.
True. There were a few physical therapists, um, physical education teachers, collegiate sports or collegiate strength coaches, private sector, team. So yeah, you had a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah, it was a good mix.
Yeah. So jump now that we're into your sports psychology degree. I want to go backwards again. So what were some of the first coaches you had that kind of changed the course of your life, or maybe you were like, I really like the way they did that, and now you kind of borrow from it and make it your own. I'm a big fan of how we get better at coaches is we have our great coaches of our own, and then we borrow or steal the things that they do really well, and we add our own little twist to it, and then try to hopefully, at some point one of our athletes takes it and they go on to become a better coach than us. So what were some of those moments or coaches that you had?
Well, mine are all that kind of stand out. First and foremost are my high school coaches. And I had a very like wide range of different coaches. They all coach very differently.
Mm-hmm.
So for soccer, there was two guys who were our coaches, and they a sense of fun to practice every day that I don't find very often in other teams.
Yeah.
And we weren't very good. Like our scores in games looked like a football score. Yeah, we lost 14-0 and people are like, "What?" I'm like, yeah, it was rough. But like they just always made practice so fun. And that was always something I really cherished and valued, is that they let us goof off. They would goof off with us, but we'd still, get practice done. But they really made it fun. And then dance line. So I'd go into soccer and then go dance line in the winter. I actually wrote a blog about these coaches. So
Ooh.
I mean, on my website, yeah. If you go to, I'm following along with you. If you go to my blogs,
okay.
I remember what I titled it, because they just had state around end of February, and I wrote 8 ways to build a team dynasty.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so I actually wrote that blog about specifically that dance team and those coaches. And they are actually retiring, so they won't be there anymore. But they know how to create a team culture. Like they have it down to a science. Our dance team is like, I hate when people say dance isn't a sport. I'm like, okay, well, you haven't been to Minnesota dance line, or you don't know the Emeralds, because we have the most state titles out of any sport in our high school. I don't think they've ever not gone to state. So they just built like a dynasty. And if you know Minnesota dance, you do know the Emeralds. Like they make their presence known. And it really comes down to those coaches. They, like I said, they know how to create that team culture. They know how to really motivate you and push you. And sometimes it's been frowned upon because they're kind of hard asses a little bit.
Yeah.
But in a great way. Like you have so much respect for them, and they can build up your confidence, but they'll also, call you out. Like they will. They have very, very high standards, and they expect that you meet them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then track is a different story. So my head coach in my track team's actually my stepdad now.
Oh.
Funny story. Yeah, but he was my coach in 7th grade. So I had him 4 years, 5, 6 years. He was my coach, and he really took me under his wing as a 7th grader. So he was actually my math teacher in 7th grade, and he was the head coach. And I didn't have a way to get from the middle school to the high school track, which is on the other side of town. And so he would actually drive me. So after school, he would drive me to practice, and my mom would pick me up. And he really went out of his way to get to know me and make me feel like I had a place on the team, and made me feel comfortable. He found seniors to show me how to warm up before meets. He was always checking in with me. And so that connection of getting to know your athletes like outside of their sport, he really took the time to get to know who I was. And I really valued that.
Yeah, for sure. How many other 7th graders were on the varsity team?
None.
Oh yeah, that's scary.
There was one 8th grader. So the 8th grader and I bonded. Yeah,
okay.
There was one.
Cool. And then, so were there any other coaches that you can think of?
Yeah, well, I would say track. My track coach, Pat Healy. He retired recently. He just, I don't know. There's a way that he coaches that I can't even really describe. But he would tell you what you need to do and you do it.
Yeah.
Like you just have that trust in him. Like I remember like so many meets I'd be getting in my blocks for the 4x4. That's kind of what we were really successful in. He'd be like, he'd be standing there and he's like, Jenna, we need a 56 on the front. And I'm kind of like, okay, like I'm going to run my fastest, run my hardest, but I don't know how fast it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, all right. And then sure enough, I get my split. It's what he tells you he needs you to do. And he just, I don't know, he just knew what to tell you.
I like it. He's coached for probably 50 years, I'm guessing. So he just
I
had
don't remember how many years, but he coached that team for a very long time. Very long time.
Just has crazy like ESP type alien skills when it comes to knowing athletes, how to motivate them, and
Yep.
yeah, the nonverbal and the verbal all mixed into one.
Mm-hmm.
So where does clutch come in? At what point was young Jenna putting this all together?
So it was actually grad school,
Okay.
my last semester. So it was around like January. We graduated in May 2017. And I really was kind of torn up to like where to go and what to do when I graduated with my master's.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of limited location wise. I mean, I could have gone somewhere else, but I made the choice to stay in the Wisconsin area because my, well, now fiance, then boyfriend, he wanted to live in his hometown. At that time, he had a company. He has an automotive shop, and it's actually pretty successful, doing really well. And his whole family's here. And so I was looking around Wisconsin area and sports psychology. I don't know if you know, it's not very big here.
No.
Like the Twin Cities, they're doing really well. Twin Cities are opportunities, but a lot of them are like you're looking Florida, you're looking the Carolinas, possibly. You're looking a lot of the East Coast,
Yep.
a lot of the West Coast. Yeah, so I was really nervous of like what to do. And my advisor, I don't know if you're familiar with Cinder Campoff.
Nope.
But she's like my sports psych mom, I say. So she has her own sports psychology consulting company. It was actually her that kind of recommended and put the seed in my mind of why don't you go do your own consulting? And I kind of told her like I don't know the business stuff. Like give me a team, give me an athlete, like I'm good. Like
Yeah.
I'm confident in that area. But the whole business side, like I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, so I was really torn of like going back and forth in my head, like, should I do it? Should I not do it? I don't know. But she really was there for me every step of the way, encouraging me, saying like, I'll help you. Like I built my business from the ground up. And hers is based out of Mankato, Minnesota. And she's like, sports psych wasn't big in this area either. So it's an opportunity to grow it instead of saying like, this sucks, there's nothing here. Look at it as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I kind of played around with like, what would I call it? Came up with many different names. And I'd come into class and tell all my classmates like, hey, what do you think of this title? And we kind of, they gave me feedback, and I'd Google the title, and most of the time it was taken.
Yeah, naming stuff is tough.
Yeah, and I finally came up with clutch, and I really liked clutch because when you think of athletics, everyone loves a clutch performance.
Mm-hmm.
That's everyone's favorite. So I first thought of clutch consulting, but that was taken. And then I came up with the mental clutch.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. And I saw it wasn't taken, and right away I bought the domain name like in February, and didn't graduate till May.
Yep.
But I was so worried it was going to get taken, so it's just like, I'm buying it right away.
Oh, you have to. You have to at this point.
Yeah.
So, okay. Oh, the naming stuff. I'm just laughing at all the. Oh, it's so stressful.
Yes.
I've got a friend. He's looking to launch a wellness series here in Point, and he had a name for it, and then we found out that someone else had taken the name. So he's pretty sad about it, but we'll rally. He'll come back. I know he'll come back with a good name. Yeah. So talking about, before we get too much into what is the mental clutch program? You obviously don't have to give away any super secret squirrel parts of it, but have you ever heard of flow state, like the
Yes. Yep.
psychology? Okay, cool. So I want to dive into that too before we.
Mihal Csikszentmihalyi.
Yeah, Csikszentmihalyi, the great flow guy. So how much of that? So I'll bring it up on the website for people at home. Flow state. Where's his book?
Actually have his book right over here.
Oh, nice. I like it.
Yeah. That's it. It's the little one. I don't have the big one, but Finding Flow.
There you go. Finding flow. I like it. So how much? Elaborate what flow means to you, if you don't mind.
So we actually talked a lot about flow in my motivational psychology class. And flow to me is just pretty much the experience where you're doing something, a task, or it could be a performance, and it feels effortless. And it feels like time flies by, and you're just so engrossed in the activity itself that you kind of lose sense of everything that's going on around you.
Mm-hmm. This for me, I always think too about because there's when you first coach someone. So I'm primarily strength and conditioning, private sector, some teams, adult groups, youth groups, individuals, post surgical, pre surgical, that kind of thing. But there's when you first show someone how to do something, they're clunky, they're overthinking it. Perhaps it's right at the threshold of their capacity, or maybe a little bit beyond them at the point. And then they practice. We do a couple weeks of it. They start to smooth things out. They're still overthinking it, but they're not as clunky. And then they get to the part where things start to move well. They're kind of getting it. You can give them deeper cues on movement instead of just like broad general kind of movement cues. And then they get to the part where I always talk about the Olympic lifts because people love doing those. They're the super hot thing right now in like strength and conditioning and fitness. And they'll watch a YouTube video and they'll come back and they're like, well, where's my body weight supposed to be? Is it supposed to be on my toes? Is it supposed to be on my heels? And I'm like, you've just jumped 6 steps from where you're at. So it's coming back to flow. It's people keep talking about flow and getting in flow state, and I want to get into that flow state, peak performance hacks, all these stupid buzzwords. And you always have to I always talk and remind them like, hey, how many reps have you put in? How much thought have you put in the mental grind where you're overthinking it, you're getting confused, you're getting frustrated, because that's such a big component to improvement, growth, and then getting flow. Because I don't know, I want to get your feedback too, but tapping into flow is so much about practice reps, mindfulness, and then getting to a point where you're challenged, but it's within your capacity and all the practice you've done.
Yep, I was gonna say your challenge needs to meet your ability. It has to be matched. Yep.
So how does that play into clutch? What does that look like for your own kind of practice when you're working with people?
Well, that's the interesting thing, is that flow and clutch are actually pretty different yet similar.
Yep.
So there's actually a study done. I can't remember who it was by, that I was actually just reading. I think about a year ago, and that's what really got me hooked into this like clutch state. Sorry, that was me. I thought I put it on airplane mode. But yeah, so flow essentially is a skill that you have, like you said, practice like multiple times, right? So you have the ability to do it. And normally flow doesn't happen sometimes at practice unless the challenge is pretty high. A lot of times, at least athletes are going to be experiencing flow when it comes time to competition. Is generally where they feel it, because a lot of times at practice they're so focused on doing it correctly, they're focused on their form and all that, where when it comes time to competition, you're just supposed to let your body flow. You're supposed to trust your abilities to just get the job done, and you're supposed to mentally just focus on doing it instead of how do I do it. Clutch though is a little different, because in flow, a lot of people will say they were really relaxed. It didn't seem hard. It seemed effortless, is what they say. But clutch, if you talk to someone who just had a clutch performance, a lot of times it wasn't easy. Like they had to make a decision to increase their effort, increase their focus, and to increase their intensity. And in flow, it's already happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of there. So it's kind of the difference the study says is flow is letting it happen, where clutch is making it happen.
Yeah.
And so in clutch, it's sometimes things aren't going your way, or it's a very high pressure situation, right? It comes down to this one play. It's, these last few, the last stretch of, like a 400 or something. Like it comes down to like make it or break it, and they're pretty much contenders to win. And they can tell they're kind of struggling, and they have to make that decision of, I need to up it a little bit more.
Hmm.
So they kind of need to motivate themselves to do more. Where in flow, they're more relaxed and calm, and they're in a really good place.
So clutch would be rising above your threshold, whereas flow is kind of doing the best with your threshold.
I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so because like I think of like my performances, for example, I could definitely identify when I was in flow.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one would be um, my senior year conference. I won the 400,
Yeah.
and I was so confident. Like you could ask me, like, "Oh, Jenna, what if you don't win?" And it like wasn't a question. It was like, "No, I'm winning. Like I'm winning the 400 meters." Like I don't remember ever feeling like that confident and comfortable with like, there's no way that anyone's beating me.
Yeah.
Like I was beaten like the whole year, and I was like, I ran against all these people. I'm gonna beat them. And I was able to just go and do what I needed to do. And it just felt so easy and effortless. And I just felt like I was gliding, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel tired and painful. I mean, it's a 400-meter dash. Like it's painful, but it didn't feel painful to me.
Yeah.
I crossed the finish line. It was just like, like it was just me running, and I didn't know anything was going on around me. That
Mm-hmm.
was flow. Clutch, I would say, I had a clutch state my senior year in college at indoor nationals for the open 400 meters. So I was ranked like third going in, and then I had prelims, and I was very, very nervous. So mentally, I was in a very different state where I was in flow. And a lot of people say if you're really nervous and overthinking things, it's really hard to get in a flow. And I was freaking out. And then during the run, I was not doing, or during the race, I wasn't doing very well. Like
Mm-hmm.
I was near the back, and I was supposed to like win my heat. And so mentally, I was like beating myself up and like, Jenna, what are you doing? Go faster. And it was like I was not in a flow, relaxed state at all. Like that race was really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I had to make a decision, and the last corner, I had to kind of step it up, put in more effort, put more intensity. And I told myself, like, you need to run faster right now. Like this last stretch, you need to start passing people, or else you're not going to make finals. And I had to start pumping my arms really hard, and kind of telling myself all the technical things I had to do to speed up. And luckily, I did pass some people, and I did make finals, but I was like the last one in.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that was a clutch performance because at the very end, I stepped it up to make finals.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask me, like, oh, did I feel good? Did that feel easy? Did it feel effortless? No, it didn't at all. Like, it was painful. It was a grind.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to, because when I think of, very rarely, if ever, can someone like rise above maybe like their worst habits, if this makes sense. So from a coaching standpoint, when you watch someone train and they allow themselves to do poor reps, poor movement, maybe just like half-assed intensity, that's typically what's going to happen when the shit hits the fan, right? Like you're going to fall to the level of coming back to what you were talking about with your coaches that they hold the standard and they expect you will hold the standard. Well, if you don't hold that standard when shit hits the fan, your performance will fall to the level of whatever you held for yourself.
Yep.
So from what I'm kind of getting from your story is clutch is you battling out of all of the the demons and the self-doubt that creeps into all of us that kind of like gets you running in circles and not thinking about what needs to be executed. Podcast I just did with my friend Derek, who also loves soccer. He's been freaking out about whatever's happening in the world of professional soccer right now. He's like losing his mind. But talking about everything that's within our control. So you were talking about with your run, like the technique, pumping your arms, where to put your feet, how to pick up your legs, forward lean, angles, breathing, all that comes in. So clutch is, it's I do it with archery. It's a big thing with archery is bringing it back, like bringing it back. You focusing on, hey, this is what I can control. Maybe these are the prerequisites to flow, or these are the prerequisites to success. But it's bringing it back to the person and what they can control. This is huge for me in the gym because everyone competes against each other. There's definitely a place for competition. It helps us all push a little harder. But
Yep.
everyone, people blame it on social media. That's fine or whatever. Like they're always comparing each other. Like, oh, the grass is greener. This person's doing this. They're always happy. Their life is amazing. And it seems to me like you have with Clutch figured out a way to bring it back home. Like tell people like you basically like slap yourself in the face. You're like, hey, cut the shit. These are the things that matter. This is what's going to lead to your success. And you've kind of figured out a way to harness all that. So bravo. Well done. Do you want to dive
Thank you.
a little bit more into that?
Yeah, I just want to throw. It reminds me of the quote by Ken Ravizza. If you're familiar with him, he's a really well-known sports psychologist, and
You mentioned him in your how do you spell his last name?
Ravizza, Ravizza.
Ravizz. So Ken.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I reference him a lot. But he has a quote, and he has said, "Are you that bad of an athlete that you need to feel well to play well?"
I like that.
And I kind of think it's like the thing I like about Clutch is that some people think, oh, if I don't get in a flow, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Right? I don't feel good if I don't feel like I can bring my A game and everything's going well. Like that's flow, right? Everything just seems to go really well. But if people don't feel well or something doesn't go their way, they get frustrated, right? And they're like, okay, well, I can't get in a flow, so this sucks. I can't perform well.
Mm-hmm.
No, you still can, right? That's a Clutch performance. You can still perform well. You can still get through whatever it is that that didn't go your way, and you can still rise above that.
Yeah. And I love about it. You're talking about like throughout this still the level of work, discipline, kind of holding the standard for yourself, the need for great coaches, a strong environment. Like that's been the common theme throughout your story is you've had some amazing coaches and you've kind of taken all of these things that they've used to be great coaches and you've been able to put it into a program for the mind, which I think is something that's lacking like in a lot of programs, in a lot of areas. People, it's uncomfortable to talk about or people don't know how to talk about it. So I want to dive into how we start talking about it. So as a I don't know how you want to approach it. Maybe from your own standpoint. So as a female athlete, a coach, how do you go about talking with this to let's start with like old school coaches. So what does that look like? You've been approached or you think there could be a benefit and they're just like old school coaches. They don't maybe understand where you're coming from or they don't think that maybe what you're talking about can be trained.
Yeah. And I have dealt with a lot of coaches who, don't buy into sports psych. They don't buy into mental health awareness. They, are in the, like you said, the old style coaching. And there was an article I saw, and it said like the days of old coaching is dying. And it is.
Thankfully.
And so I think hitting them with that reality of, this isn't the way things are being done anymore. And you can stick to what you're used to, but like, where do you think that's going to get you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the research can show them a lot when you show them statistics, the power of positivity, the importance of getting to know your athletes. And I think activities are huge here. So like when I'm working with coaches, sometimes there's an activity I love to do, and you flip the script a little bit. And I've done it with parents too. So the parents or the coaches are like playing a game, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the other coach is standing out, or if you have like the team there, they act out the other coach.
Okay.
And so in a negative way, right? So they're yelling at them, they're screaming at them, they're doing all this stuff that's actually detrimental to the athlete, and the coach gets to experience it for themselves, process that, like, how did that feel?
Yeah.
Like, was that motivating you? Did that encourage you? Did that boost your confidence? And then show them the other way. Like, what are some other things you could say in that situation? And then have them feel it themselves. And then sometimes that turns their wheels of, okay, maybe there is a better way to do this.
Mm-hmm. I like it. What have been your, obviously it's still super new, but what have been your biggest barriers or hurdles kind of doing this and trying to implement it or work with people?
Well, like I said, I don't have like the business side figured out yet. It's a learning process.
Yeah.
That's L is learn for clutch. It's one of my
Oh yeah,
letters in the.
we'll go through those. We'll go through the acronym next.
Awesome. So I'm always learning, always asking for help. That's huge. And just figuring out as I go. And I kind of accept that. So there's a lot of hurdles and a lot of barriers when it comes to just building my own business, when it comes to the website, website creation, even just like, I don't know, blogging sometimes. I don't feel like I'm a big writer, but I just force myself to get out of my comfort zone and do it. Um, I would say though, one of the hardest things is the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of getting yourself out there, marketing yourself to athletic directors, to coaches, to teams, to parents, to find clients to work with. That has been a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Some days it seems like I have a lot of clients and I'm really busy, then other days it's slow and I feel like I need to start marketing myself again. And you always feel annoying, like reaching out to people like, hey, would you like some of my services? And I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson. So I think that's the biggest struggle.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. So would you to maybe help your the sales part of you as a coach? I always tell my coaches, does it pass the grandma test? So is it something you'd want to talk to your grandma about? Maybe help your grandma with, or have your grandma help you with? And if you can say yes to that, I believe it holds value. So talk away, annoy the shit out of people, be passionate. Don't be afraid to express why you think it's important and how it can help people. But I just love my grandma. That's really what it comes down to. So go right. Grandmas are the best.
No.
So diving into the acronym, is that on the website? Can I find that for people to
I
watch?
actually do not think it's on the website yet. So the
There's a
acronym's still
blog
pretty.
post. Boom.
I know it will be. It will be. Don't worry. I actually want to extend it and do like an online course
Oh,
with
okay.
it in the
Nice.
future.
Nice.
Which again, that will be a whole nother barrier in itself. And just add in different components with each letter, and activities and things they can do to really bring it home for them and really make an impact.
Makes sense. Well,
Yeah, so
I'm
still
gonna.
pretty.
What was that?
That's still pretty new.
That's fair. So I'm gonna bring up a doc so we can go through this for people that are watching. Everyone listening, you just have to keep up listening, or hopefully maybe if you're driving, please don't stop driving. But here we go. All right, let's bring this up. Clutch. All right, Jenna, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so let's go through the acronym.
Yep, go through it a little, and then talk why it's so important to you. Like why you, because for me I've done, the hell have I done? I forget how many years. I've off and on blogs for the different gyms I've worked for. I've had my own blog. This podcast is kind of like a version of a blog. Getting more back into writing because I love the idea of writing. I just suck at it, and then I I lose the mental focus where I'm just like, well, you suck at it, don't do it. Whereas it's like, no, that's part of it. You're supposed to suck at it. The only way to get better is to do it more. But with coming back to verbiage, so when I was in your workshop and going through the words, I was so curious as to like why you chose these words, because words are so important. And as coaches, we hear it all the time. It's not what you do with a person. It's not how you help them. It's the way you make them feel. And obviously, words and the words we choose to say and the words we don't choose to say and all the nonverbal that goes into it play a huge part in that. So I was curious as to why you chose these words.
Okay. So I guess just some background before I dive into each letter, kind of why clutch. So my company is the Mental Clutch, and I say I teach what I call the eye of the storm mentality. And to me, what the eye of the storm mentality is essentially kind of a clutch performance in itself. So if you think of the eye of the storm, like a hurricane, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where the calmness is, and there's chaos all around it. But the eye is where you're calm. So if you can have the eye of the storm mentality and mentally think that you are the calmness and calm yourself down and get yourself focused and let everything that's chaotic or the pressure that's going on, let that stay around you, but don't let it get inside of you. You stay calm. That's where I think you can be the most successful.
Mm.
That's where you'll achieve the highest performance. So coming off that, then I came up with the kind of the clutch mentality, kind of play off that. And so the clutch mentality is the acronym. So the C is communication. And when I talk about communication, it can be a variety of things of how are you communicating to yourself? So your self-talk, how as a coach, how are you communicating to your team? How are you communicating to your teammates as an athlete? And then L is learn. And so I think it's huge to always be learning from our mistakes, learning from our successes, learning from others. We just always should be learning and growing. The U is understand, and you just need to understand a lot of factors to have a high performance, whether it's you need to understand where you need to be to perform at your best mentally, physically, emotionally. As a coach, you need to understand your athletes. You need to understand what works for them, what motivates them. And you also need to understand like your philosophy and like kind of your purpose.
Ooh,
And so
I
the
like that.
T is trust. And this one's huge. You need to trust a lot of factors. And like I was saying, to have a clutch performance, you need to trust that in your abilities that you can get the job done. And so if it's a team sport, you need to trust your teammates to get the job done. As a coach, you need to trust that they'll do their job. So there's a lot of factors in there that you need to trust. The C is control. And I think of this as control the controllable. So instead of focusing outside, of everything you can't control, focus inside of you. What can you control? And then the H is have fun. And this is my favorite one because I think it's so important to have fun. Always have a component of fun in everything you do. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
I like that. Have fun.
Yeah.
So would that be? I always try to dial that back to health and wellness for a lot of people. So when I do assessments, evals, talking about their why, and you'll get the goal. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to lose this. It's like, yeah, but why? Like,
Yeah.
when you lose that 10 pounds, what are you going to do then? Like, are you done? Are you now like fit? Game over. It's done. All the habits that got you there, you're not gonna continue them. So it's like, why do you want to lose the 10 pounds? Why is fitness? Why do you want to work out? So um, understand. So going back, that would be like probably the U for the clutch mentality. And then once they understand that, like that fun piece is so vital. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is going to be enjoyable about this for you going to the gym? Because so many people freak themselves out because they're worried about the control factors. They're worried about what are people going to think about me. Well, what if I'm the slowest one there? What if I don't know how to do something? What if I look silly? It's like, shit, we can't be worried about those things. You have to control the things you can control. So showing up, putting your gym clothes by the door when you leave the house, setting your environment up to allow for you to succeed. And that fun piece is so vital. So many people lose out on that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, just it's enjoyment, right? Have fun is essentially figuring out a way you can enjoy it.
Love it. So going, I think I have everything. Going off the kind of the acronyms, the clutch, this component of it. For this, when you're working with someone, how much are you talking about environment? So not the uncontrollable environment, but the things that are within their control. So who they hang out with, what are they doing in their downtime? What is their mental or physical recovery look like? What is their continued learning look like? How much of that do you talk about with clutch?
Um, I mean, I talk a lot about like routines, like that one's huge.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking.
Yeah,
That's
like a pre-performance routine is huge, and I actually just did that with my athletes this week. So we have conference tomorrow for track, and I had them all write down a pre-performance routine, and I got a couple eye rolls and moans and groans because they don't want to do it. But then when you teach them, so the understand piece, or when they understand the importance of it, they're more likely to do it. I
mm-hmm.
always tell them, why do you have a pre-performance routine? It's the same reason why you have a routine before you go to bed. It's the same reason why you have a routine when you wake up before you go to work or go to school or whatever it is, because it's efficient, it's effective, right? And it makes you feel the most prepared, right? So some people need to do certain things before they go to bed because it helps them sleep better at night, right? It helps with that performance of sleeping. In the morning, you have a couple of things because it helps you prepare to have the best day you can at work, right? Or helps you feel mentally and physically ready for your job or going to school. So it's the same for a performance. If you have a routine, it helps with consistency and it helps breed confidence, right? The more prepared you feel, the more confident you're going to feel, just like a test. And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
always say with the student athletes that I work with, because I think that makes the most sense for them. But if you're going to take a test and you don't feel pretty prepared, do you feel confident? No. They're like, right, I'm freaking out. Okay. If you studied a lot, right, and you took the time and then you felt prepared for it, you feel more confident. Yeah. Okay. That's what a performance routine does.
Nice. What do you did you have one in college before you ran?
Yes.
What did that look like?
Um, I mean, I guess it goes how far back you want it to go. My routine usually started the night before a meet. So Friday night, I always had to go to bed early. I always had to eat a really good dinner. I wasn't really specific on what it was, but like a salad and then carbs, so spaghetti or something. I don't know. I need
Classic.
some of that, and I would drink a lot of water. Yep.
Yep.
And then the day of the meet, get up. I always pre-packed my bag too the night before in case I somehow slept in. So I had everything ready to go. If we had to go somewhere if it was away, I always slept on the bus because I usually didn't compete for a while. So I would just get a nap in. I used imagery. So, kind of in the downtime, I would see myself performing, seeing it done exactly how I want it to be, kind of remembering a few cues of like relaxed shoulders, big arms. Um, and I was a starter, so like big arms split out of the blocks. And then when I would usually get to the meet, sometimes I would find myself like getting too anxious. And so sometimes I had to step away from the track, especially like nationals. I had to like leave. I'd have to go back to my hotel room, or I just needed to leave to mentally focus on something else. And then I'd do my warm up. And I was a really big stretcher, I think, because of the dancer in me. I feel like extra flexible, and I know people are very against static stretching. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, no, it should be dynamic stretching, and I'm like, no, I feel ready when I'm also static stretching.
Yep.
So it also take like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, and I would stretch. Um, and then my pre-performance block routine was very specific. So I would set up my blocks, and then I would always do like a practice start. And then on the way back, I always said a prayer, and kind of just pray to God to make sure my race goes well and that I'm prepared and that I'm focused and that I get the job done. And then I always on your marks, I'd always have to kind of shuffle around. I'd always did two jumps, like two tuck jumps,
Mm-hmm.
get into my blocks, move my left arm first, and then my right arm, and then look down. Then I always have to tighten my hair tie. Don't know why. That was just my way of like, I'm good to go. I think that was like my focus cue.
Yep.
And then I look down, and then I'd hear set, and I'd take a deep breath, and then I raise up, and literally the only thing I told myself was big arms, big arms, big arms.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that. You mentioned imagery during that. How much of that do you talk about with people talking about clutch or training? Because I don't have the research in front of me, but I know I've read research articles where they're talking about like even just skill work, physical or cognitive, showing something someone want or doing something with someone once, and then not doing it again with them, but just telling them to think about it, and they still improve. So the human brain, just thinking about something can improve on it, physical or cognitive. So how much of that are you talking about with people? Imagery, visualization, stuff like that.
I talk about it a lot. I could always do a better job. I always think I could talk about more with my athletes. I want to do more of like imagery sessions that I lead with the team because I think imagery is a skill just like anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to teach them how to do it if they don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And you need to lead them through it until they can start seeing it and encompassing all the senses, right? Because that's imagery. It's different than visualization.
Yep.
So imagery, seeing it, you hear everything that's going around you. Smelling's a big one for like swimmers, right? Because they can like smell the chlorine of the pool. It like puts them in that whole environment with all their senses. But yeah, like I always did it growing up, mainly because of my dance team. My dance coaches always had us use imagery, and I do it with my athletes. I tell them to do mental reps. So sometimes if their body's kind of falling apart, I tell them, okay, go do some mental reps. Right. And so sometimes they look at me like I'm crazy. And like, go see yourself in your mind doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. See it. I want to know what it sounds like you hitting the board because I'm a jumps coach. I want to know what it feels like landing in the sand. I want you to have that experience in your mind. Go do that like 5 times. And it actually saves their body too, because the research does show that, yeah, mental reps, because you're firing actually the same like neural pathways as when you're physically doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy. So it's channeling that same pathway. It's just not as like strong.
Yep. Yeah, I talk a lot about that with people I'm helping through rehab, or maybe they're out of physical therapy visits, and coaching them on the side. Because for me as a athletic trainer and my degrees in sports medicine, that was like such a big part of my rehab programs, was like, even if we can't move that limb right now or do it with weight, like be thinking about moving it, thinking about how it feels moving through space, still working, because that's such a big part of proprioception, and just body awareness is still being able to think about it, or even when you're training the good side, thinking about moving the injured side. And there's research to support I think it's the cross training principle or cross training theory, where just moving the good arm and thinking about the injured side will still gain strength or maintain kind of capacity in that limb. So
yeah, because you're still, the neural pathways are still firing.
Exactly.
The neurons are still going down that
human brain is insane. It's crazy stuff. Jenna, what else do you want to talk about? What else do you want to cover on clutch? Those are the big questions I had that obviously would have been weird if I would have asked all those right at the end of the clinic.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have any questions about any of the letters, or anything you want me to touch base on with those, or dive a little bit deeper into?
Yes. So you talk for yourself. I want to know. So when you go speak on this in front of a team, a group, or maybe coaches who are just like looking at you like you're crazy, what's your pre-performance routine look like?
That's a great question. So when I was at IMG Academy right after I graduated in the summer, and they kind of helped me develop my pre-performance routine before I present. And one of the biggest things is listening to music and kind of having like a dance party. So I will jam out music and I'll dance. So if I'm driving, I am having a dance party in my car on my way to present. And I do it kind of like the last 20 minutes before I get there. So I'm kind of feeling like pumped, I'm energized. It kind of helps me tell myself I'm feeling confident, even if I'm not, just because that faster heart rate and like the dancing just kind of pump me up then rather than make me feel nervous. And then I'm sure you noticed I had music playing as you walk in.
Yep.
That's the thing we did at IMG Academy too. So in the leadership department, we always wanted the kids coming in and feeling kind of more relaxed right away. And we felt like when we have music going on, it kind of helps set the tone. So they're like, okay, maybe this won't be so bad, right? Because they come in, they're like, we were working with middle schoolers and high schoolers, and they're like, I don't want to sit in this leadership session. Like, this is gonna be boring. It's gonna be dumb. Like, whatever it is they're thinking. Well, they hear music and they're dancing, they're singing themselves sometimes, and they just feel more relaxed. And then they're kind of like, okay, I'll give it a chance. So it sets the tone for both the audience, but it also helps me stay calm and focused and confident as well when I hear the music.
I like
So
that.
yeah, and I use imagery as well. So I will use imagery like the night before, and during the day before the presentation, I'll kind of just close my eyes and see myself performing it the way I want it to go.
Nice. I sense that you should start making music/dance blog posts. Like every month or so, you should be like, this is what Jenna is rocking out to kick ass and spread the good word of clutch. I feel like this would be its own content generation right here.
Yeah.
Is like what you're listening to and why. Like into the eye of the storm that is the clutch mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I,
started
I
that.
would I would subscribe.
That blog post. This is currently on my playlist, and it's called IMG playlist because I we created it while I was at IMG. We were like just adding songs that like got us going, got us feeling good, and
Is this on
I still,
Spotify?
it is on Spotify.
I'm gonna follow this right now.
Yeah, it.
IMG.
So my Spotify name actually is I think it's Helvio2. Confirm that. That was my nickname in high school was Helvy. So
Mm.
that's kind of a lot of my
Oops.
stuff. Did you find me Helvio2?
I've got wedding, tone class, Xmas, country, Zumba, 2000 hits. Nice.
IMG Summer 2017.
I'm gonna follow that 2000 hits.
There is one song on there that my mentor at the time, or like my boss, he put on that I keep it on because he likes it, but I always skip it.
Why am I not seeing the IMG one?
I don't know.
Is
It's
it
not.
set to public?
It might not be. Shoot, maybe it's not.
Boo.
I didn't create it, so I wonder
Oh,
if I can make it public.
it's a bummer. Yeah, you'd probably have to copy it and then create your own playlist from it.
I have it all downloaded just in case, that's something if you are putting music on when you present somewhere, if you want to do that as your pre-performance routine, I do recommend downloading it because if you don't have internet or it's spotty,
Mm.
it's always awkward that's out. So
It's a good pro tip.
I'll have to look into that, see how I can make it
Yeah, I could
public.
add it to the show notes.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll play around with it and let you know if I figure it out.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Ah, damn. Now where did the list go? That was my big question. And then I guess what? So, do you have a? What did you? Oh, shit. You mentioned a focus cue. What were you talking about just now?
Focus phrase or
Focus phrase. Yeah. So what is so for archery? I bow hunt archery, and then I do. It's basically like a trail race mixed with archery.
hmm.
So my focus phrase for that is brass when I'm drawing back. It's so lock in the anchor points when I'm shooting my bow, and then breathe, relax, aim, sight, squeeze. And that's kind of just like brings me back to the things I can focus even when my heart beats 170 and I'm trying to catch up to the person in front of me, or I don't, I don't know what place I'm in or blah blah blah. Create a list of all the shit that we worry about that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's kind of my focus phrase. So I was curious what yours is.
Like when I present or
Sure.
um that's a good question. I don't know if I have like one focus phrase that I use a lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I tell myself be Beyonce. That is mine.
Oddly enough, I tell myself the same thing.
She's like my idol. So that kind of gets me like, okay, yeah, Beyonce's amazing. She's fierce. I can be fierce. Um, or I just say like be yourself. Be yourself. That's kind of a good reminder, like being authentic, especially when I'm presenting, because I don't want to, you know, be someone I'm not. I don't want to do something that I've seen someone else do that doesn't come naturally for me because it feels fake for me. The audience can see it. Um, and I kind of remind myself a lot of like connection, like connect to your audience. And a lot of times that just helps me get into flow, honestly, when I am presenting, because sometimes I just kind of lose sight of my slides. Even I kind of just go off the story. But that's when it seems like it works the best because I am really just connecting. I'm letting the audience almost take it where they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're driving the bus, but I'm just hitting like the gas and the brake. Like I
Yeah,
just kind of slow down.
I like that. Nice. Looking at the list right here. I put my mic right in front of my screen.
But I should come up with specifically one focus phrase. I had one when I competed. So
Ooh, what was that one? Or you said what
was
was it?
big arms. Big
Yeah, I was gonna
arms.
say big arms. You just said it. So big arms. What else we got here? Ooh, I want to get back to self-talk.
Yeah.
So what does that look like for you? What what
Well,
what do you what is kind of your biggest area where you're like your biggest critic?
like what's my biggest critic like in my mind?
Yeah, like what do you critique yourself the hardest on?
Oh, so many things. Um, yeah, I have some people that are like, Jenna, you have it like so all together and you're so confident. I'm like, really? That's what you see? Wow, I must be putting on a good show. It's not. I don't know. I think some of the hardest thing is like when you record yourself, which I'm sure you do a lot because you have a podcast, and you hear yourself. Like I heard that there's like a study that like no one likes hearing themselves. It's like the worst sound to everyone.
Yeah,
Um,
I would vouch for that.
yeah, and I record myself. I try to watch it so I could learn and give myself feedback and oh, I just like rip on myself all the time of like, wow, you stumbled on that word, or you should have said this instead of that, and I critique myself constantly with that. I got to the point now where I do my mental clutch Mondays. I've been doing little videos.
Yep.
Try to not watch them. That's like my thing. As long as it's under a minute, because Instagram doesn't let you go over a minute. I'm like, as long as you get under that, just post it.
Well, you can go on. You can post it to IGTV,
I could do that. See,
and
this is
then
like the social media stuff. Like I just got Instagram when I started my business. So I'm still kind of new
oh
to
wow.
Instagram. So yeah, I just got it like middle of 2017 because my friend made me. She's like, you need to do this for your business. So I'm like, okay. So yeah, like I'm still new to
Oh,
all this
that's
stuff.
funny.
Yeah, I critique myself a lot with just with a lot of presenting. That's kind of my biggest thing is when I kind of reflect back on it, I'm very hard on you should have done this, not that. It's also feedback though, so it's good, but I'm not very compassionate with myself when I give myself feedback.
That's fair. I
Yeah.
can relate to all that. Um, hmm. Oh, I know what I'm gonna ask you. So you've got all this going on, coaching, the site. You've found a way to connect your passions into what you're doing as a career. How do you still find a way to have fun with it? What does that look like? I know it's still super new, and you'll get this kind of comparison, but it's when I talk to people who start a new business or get into something like this, they're super excited the first year. It's the honeymoon phase. And you're engaged, so you'll relate. But how do you keep it fun so you can go back and continue to do all of these other things and keep the mental clutch going forward. You know, where how do you keep it fun now so in 5 years the mental clutch is still a thing, it's still kicking ass, and it's grown beyond your expectations. What does that look like? So how do you keep it fun?
Well, first of all, I trust the process. That's a big thing. And the biggest way for me to keep it fun is to remind myself that I don't need to do everything right now. So there are like 10 things I want to do and like 10 extra projects. Like, I don't want to give everything away, but like I want to write the online course. I want to write a book. That's like a 10-year goal. I want to write like kid books as well, like children books targeted kind of on these topics. And I have all these ideas like going, um, but I need to like slow it down. So I think that's the biggest ways because all these things excite me and they're keeping me excited with it, and so I'm not kind of getting bored day to day, and so I'm still having fun with those ideas. So instead of just jumping into it and trying to check them all off my checklist right now, I'm just letting them sit and just letting me like stay excited for them. And so I know like this is my 5-year goal, and so I have time, and so that keeps it fun and light, knowing I'm good where I'm at right now, keep doing what you're doing, and then like later on add this part, and then 5 years later add this part. So keep growing and adding components to keep it fun and exciting for yourself.
I love that. I like that. Probably gonna steal parts of that. So
Yeah.
thank you. Uh, Anything else? We're at the hour mark, a little bit over, but
Yeah, not much else. I just like I said, keep adding projects. I did want to throw out quick because it is Wisconsin. A lot of your listeners are probably from.
mm-hmm.
I am doing a female athlete empowerment
Oh
symposium this August that
shit!
I'm hosting,
Nice.
for all of the student athletes in my high school in Sauk Prairie.
What's that called? Does it have an event page?
It does not yet. See, this is why I need to create an event page. I just created the registration forms. So I think, more people I think need to step up and get out there, and you can host this event too in your area. Reach out if you have any questions. This is the first year I'm doing it. It's a really big project, but like I said,
Nice.
it's keeping it fun for me. It's keeping it exciting.
Is this on your website?
Yeah, so
How do I find it?
no, it's not on my website either. It's just kind of a thing I'm doing with the athletic director, and we're kind of just spreading the word. I just created the registration forms, so I have not posted them yet.
Okay. Well, send that to me when you have it. Create an event page, and then
Yes.
I will post it in the show notes and share the shit out of it because that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So inspire and empower all the female athletes out there, male athletes too. But that's I'm a female athlete, so I like empowering the female athletes. So
Hell yes, I'm down for that. Cool. Where can people find you on your freshly created Instagram?
well, it has been like 2 years now, so almost. It has almost been up for 2 years. So you can find me at Halvy02. So that's HALVY02. That is Instagram. That's also my Twitter. And I have my Facebook page, The Mental Clutch, and then my website, which is thementalclutch.org, which is up and running again after a few days of it not working. So that's exciting.
Hell yes. Oh, website problems, the best. All right. Well, Jenna, anything you want to leave people with? I'm a big fan of concluding thoughts.
I think just I don't know. I always end my like topics with keeping up the mental clutch mentality. So I think keep that clutch mentality all the time. So things might not go your way. There might be obstacles and barriers, but doesn't mean you can't push through them. Right? You can still be clutch and get through it in many different ways.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'll stop the stream and then you and I can